Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask a Property Manager. Today is January 13th, 2021, and this is episode number 54. I'm coming to you from Studio 2.0 here at Own Buffalo. I'm Andrew Schultz, Principal Broker of Own Buffalo, Inc. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about vinyl plank versus vinyl sheet flooring. We'll talk a little bit about some doggy drama. We'll check in with the mortgage industry and see what's new. And we'll answer some questions from housing providers around the country. Before we get to all of that, we're going to go ahead and plug our social media. New episodes of Ask a Property Manager every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page live. You can also catch the replay on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube page. That goes up the same day. Last but not least, don't forget to check out our Instagram. We post some things there that we don't necessarily post on Facebook or on YouTube. Just some quick content over there. A new episode of the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast comes out this week, tomorrow on Thursday. We're going to be taking a look at marijuana in rental properties, tenant-caused damages due to plumbing modifications, and what to do when a tenant accidentally overpays you rent. So you can find that starting tomorrow anywhere podcasts are heard, any app that you listen to podcasts in, or over at rentprep.com/podcast. We're going to jump into our news of the day here. First and foremost, let me get my desktop screen prepared because I was not set up right. There we go. So this is coming to us from Mortgage News Daily. This is one of the first things that I wanted to touch on today. This is talking about the way mortgages are looking right now. Where are we at in terms of delinquency on mortgages? Again, this is published by Mortgage News Daily. Although gradually improving, delinquencies remain elevated. This was published yesterday, January 12th. The rate of mortgage delinquencies remains significantly elevated from last year, but there is a gradual improvement. The national rate moved higher in October on an annual basis per CoreLogic's Loan Performance Insight Report. Loans that were 30 days or more past due, including those in foreclosure, represented 6.1% of all active mortgages compared to 3.7% in October of 2019. That's a pretty substantial jump. I mean, when you're talking several percentage points over the course of a year, that's quite a bit. In September, however, the annual rate of increase was only 6.3%. Early stage delinquencies are exhibiting the most positive trend. Loans that were 30 to 59 days past due declined from a 1.8% rate in October of 19 to 1.4%. The rate for that delinquency bucket spiked at 4.2% in April when the first financial effects of COVID-19 pandemic hit. The rate for loans in the adverse delinquency, i.e. 60 to 89 days non-current, was unchanged from a year earlier at 0.6%. I think the reason there was a big spike there was essentially because at the onset of COVID, mortgage companies were handing out deferrals like water. So I think that a lot of people took advantage of that, whether they necessarily needed to or not. The rate of serious delinquencies, the share of loans more than 90 days past due, remains more than 3 times its year-ago rate of 1.3%, but it is slowly improving. It inched down from the August and September rates of 4.3 and 4.2% respectively, down to 4.1%. So that's good news. That means that people who are 90 days plus past on their mortgage, some of those people are starting to get caught up and are starting to pull their properties back out of that delinquency. The foreclosure inventory rate, loans in the process of foreclosure, is down 0.1% on an annual basis. Due largely to the moratoriums in effect due to the pandemic, the rate has stayed at 0.3% for 7 consecutive months. That's the lowest rate since CoreLogic began tracking the statistic in 1999. That makes a lot of sense to me as well. I know that we do some foreclosure work here in our office, listing of foreclosed properties, bank assets, things like that. That line of business has slowed down quite a bit for us. Simply because there is an a foreclosure moratorium in place right now as well, which is basically halted the foreclosure process. So there's not a lot of new stuff coming down the pipeline, and a lot of the stuff that had already been foreclosed on has already come and exited the market at this point. So unless the banks are sitting on shadow inventory, which I don't think they're doing in our market really, I would say that that foreclosures are going to be harder to come by for the next little period of time here. When you start talking about the wave of foreclosures, and I think that there will be, a higher than average rate of foreclosures, you're going to be looking 24 to 36 months down the road, at least here in the state of New York, because it takes an extended amount of time to go through that entire foreclosure process from beginning to end. So, when we're talking about the foreclosure rate, people are asking me, oh, when are we going to start buying foreclosures? When do the foreclosures hit the market? They're not coming for a while. So hold on to your capital, be ready to make a move, but be ready to make that move. I'll say conservatively 18 months, but realistically 24 to 36 months is when you're going to start seeing foreclosure inventory pick up in our market. Back to the article now. In October, 0.8% of active mortgages transitioned from current to 30 days past due. This is up from 0.7% in October of 2019. During an early autumn, the improving economy enabled more families to remain current on their home loans, says Frank Theft. I did not pronounce that right. Chief economist at CoreLogic. In September and October, 0.8% of current borrowers transitioned into 30-day delinquency. That's the same as the monthly average for 12 months prior to the pandemic, and well below the record peak of 3.4% of borrowers transitioning into delinquency that we observed in April 2020. And again, this was people who they missed that first payment there in April when the pandemic first hit and everyone was trying to figure out what was happening. A lot of those people probably went from non-payment in the month of April to deferment. So that's kind of why that stat is a little bit higher, possibly artificially, in my opinion. Every state posted an annual increase in its delinquency rate. Hawaii and Nevada, both major tourist destinations, grew the most. Hawaii began lifting some of its travel restrictions during the month, and its rate was up 4.7 points from October 2019. Nevada had a 4.6% gain. 4.6 point gain. Those two statistics do not surprise me. I mean, talking to people that live out in Las Vegas and even seeing footage of what's happening when the strip was completely shut down, just the desolate strip, you could tell that there was going to be an issue. When you have an entire city that runs on essentially one industry, tourism, and that industry is dead, you're going to have a lot of issues such as this. Similarly, nearly all U.S. metros logged an increase in overall delinquency rates in October. Lake Charles, Louisiana, with an economy damaged both by COVID-19 and Hurricane Laura, had the largest annual increase for the second consecutive month, 11 percentage points. Other metro areas with significant overall delinquency included the Odessa, Texas area, Hawaii, and Midland, Texas. So it just kind of shows you where we're at in the mortgages currently. Things are starting to improve. It's going to be a long road to recovery. Unfortunately, for some, there won't be a recovery, and it'll wind up turning into a foreclosure. I think if you're talking about foreclosures, you have to be talking at least, like I said, 18 months on the very, very early end, probably 36 months realistically to start seeing a lot of those foreclosures hit the market. And keep in mind, even if they have a foreclosure moratorium right now, there's going to be people who are going to try to refinance to get out of foreclosure. There's options for people right now, so don't necessarily plan on there being a giant wave of foreclosures. I think it's going to be a longer term, more gradual thing. Second article, it comes to us locally. This is out of the Buffalo market right up here in Amherst, New York. DMG Investments aims to fix the sore spot with the community in a long-stalled hotel project. This is right by the University at Buffalo North Campus, if you're familiar with the Buffalo market at all, in Amherst. Proximity to the University at Buffalo's Amherst campus and a healthy commercial neighborhood prompted a New York City-based investment firm to sign on to convert a long-stalled hotel project on Sweet Home Road into a residential anchored development. DMG Investments LLC is finalizing the deal to acquire the unfinished 6-story hotel at 1265 Sweet Home Road, turn it into a complex with up to 270 apartments. DMG may invest at least $15 million. Given the stage of construction with the building, it really lends itself to some minor modifications. We won't have to go too far backward on this one. Alone said DMG will not only finish the building, whose construction stalled in 2018, but would also like to build a second structure. Corey Auberlock, a Barclay Damon partner and DMG's attorney, said the investment company is negotiating with Sweet Home Hotels LLC of Kitchener, Ontario to purchase the property. The deal should be wrapped up next month, just as the project goes before Amherst Planning Board for approval. Sweet Home Hotels had planned a 127-room Maplewood Suites hotel, but the work stopped in early 2018 when the project was subject to more than $2.5 million in mechanics liens filed by contractors who worked on the project but were not paid. We know this has been a sore spot with the community, Alone said, and we want to fix that. The still-to-be-named project will include a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments, with the final design being worked on by DMG's local design team, Kidney Architects PC. Alone said the target market includes UB students and those connected to the university and nearby businesses. AJ Baines Amherst Chamber of Commerce president and the CEO said that he's encouraged that the hotel attracted the attention of out-of-town investors. This is a short-term investment for them. It was a travesty that the building sat there vacant and dormant for a while, but now things have changed. The deal is the second in Amherst with a former hotel property finding new life as an apartment complex. The recently closed Residence Inn by Marriott at 100 Maple is also being revived by Peg Companies of Provo, Utah. Alone said he hopes the work can start this spring and the complex will be ready to welcome its first tenants by midsummer 2022. The bones of the hotel with amenities like an indoor pool, spa, and fitness center will work well for us. This is really a unique opportunity in a lot of respects. This is not your standard project by any degree. I'm actually going to pull up a map real quick, a satellite map of the area. Bear with me, because I kind of want to show where this is and the development that is taking place by UB. Let's see here. So there's University at Buffalo. We'll switch to satellite view. This is the University at Buffalo North Campus, and we're up in Amherst, New York. The property that we're talking about is actually right here. This is the property that they're talking about. This was meant to be a hotel. Obviously, the hotel work stalled well before the coronavirus. This was talking about back in 2018, this project stalled out. Obviously, it wasn't going to be reborn as a hotel at this point, given that there's really not a huge draw for that currently. So ultimately, they're going to turn this into apartments. What I find is interesting is just south of here. So we are going to be, I wish I could highlight on my screen. Hopefully you guys can see the cursor. This is the building that we're talking about right here that they are purchasing for rehab. This was a medical complex just south of it. This was actually a medical practice. I think there was a diagnostic, like a blood draw lab in there and stuff like that as well. This has all been demoed and is being turned into student apartments as well. When you look up here, this is largely apartments, off-campus housing, things of that nature. There is a small Fairfield Inn and Suites over there as well. But I wanted to scroll over here, and again, we're still right by the campus. This is the campus up to the north. When you're talking about that other project that they had mentioned, that Residence Inn and Suites, that's right here. So again, both of these projects are literally seconds from the university. It's going to make it very easy for university students who are trying to find off-campus housing, people who are connected to the university, faculty and things like that to find off-campus housing. There's a lot of development going on around the UB campus area right now. And it's interesting to see, we've talked about it multiple times here on the show, hotels being converted to apartments. Well, here's two prime examples. You have what used to be an extended stay facility that's being converted to apartments now. I think that'll make for a really nice, very easy conversion, to be honest with you. And then obviously over here you have the apartment complex, the hotel that's being converted to apartments as well. So quite a bit of development happening in our area. It's kind of exciting to see developers taking the reins on some of these buildings, especially this one that was mothballed since 2018. I drive by this actually pretty frequently just based on where I live and the neighborhood and stuff like that. It's nice to see that that project's actually going to be going somewhere and doing something again. So I'm glad to see that. Let's take a look at our emotional support cow. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the drama surrounding emotional support animals and things of that nature. I don't remember where I pulled this one from. It was either one of my property management groups or off of Rob's Facebook page, one of the two. But yeah, I couldn't believe this one when I saw it. This is going to be an emotional support cow for a tenant. Legend says that only a construction worker pure of heart may retrieve it. I've definitely dropped tape measures in places where they don't belong before and been unable to retrieve them, so I can kind of feel for this guy. I'll tell that story another time, another day. Yeah, it's a pretty good one. It's from a previous job, but it was a pretty humorous thing that happened, and it ended up going poorly for me and the store that it happened at. But again, that's another story for another day. Let's jump into our questions from housing providers around the country here. Listing qualifications on ads. I just saw an apartment rental ad that listed a specific amount of minimum required for income. Have you included this in your ads? Yeah, actually we do. I'm going to switch back over to desktop real quick and show you one of our current apartment ads. This is one of our 2-bedroom apartments. This just went on the market a few days ago. And you can see in the text of the ad, obviously we have a description of the apartment. We actually break out and tell the tenants what they're going to be paying. Tenant pays electric and gas, water, dishwasher, off-street parking are included. We include room dimensions. A lot of people don't think to include room dimensions. It's useful information for a tenant to have. And then last but not least, what are our requirements? 1 year lease required, credit and background checks completed on all applicants, credit score of 600, and after-tax income of $2,700 a month required. No pets, no smoking. We outline our requirements right in every apartment ad, and we do that because we think it's important to have that information out there for the public, so that they understand what we're looking for. And a lot of times you'll get people, if they don't qualify, they'll self-select right out. We also pre-screen people before we set up a showing with them, because a lot of people don't read through the ad or think, oh, I'm going to be able to sneak through or something like that. So we do pre-screen people before we go ahead and set up showings. Do you catch everybody? No, you're not going to catch everybody. Occasionally one will get all the way to the application process and wind up getting denied because they don't meet the qualification criteria. But by the time somebody actually goes to apply for one of our apartments, they've seen the criteria on the ad, they've heard the criteria on the phone or via email, depending on how they set up their appointment. They've seen the criteria on the rental application, and then they've still chosen to fill out the rental application. So by the time they get to that point, if they don't know what our criteria are and what it is that we're looking for, it's because they haven't paid attention during the process, basically the entire process all the way along. So yeah, we definitely go ahead and list what we're looking for on our ads because we think that it'll ultimately bring us a better qualified applicant, without the need to run around and basically go back and forth with applicants and stuff like that. Vinyl sheet or vinyl plank. We have a 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom coming available soon. It now has old carpeting on concrete slab that we're going to pull out. We want to put down something hard and durable, but not super expensive. The place is nice enough, but has all painted paneling and drop ceiling tiles. LVP is too expensive. Can you recommend a brand of wood look vinyl flooring with a longer warranty or anything else that's durable? The thing I like about wood look sheet vinyl is that if you get a tear, you can cut out the planks and reinsert a patch. So my recommendation would be to try to go for the vinyl plank if you can at all squeeze it in. I understand that it's more expensive. We're going to drop to desktop here in a second, but you're going to get a much better product, a much better end result, and a much longer lasting product using a vinyl plank versus something like a sheet vinyl or using something like a linoleum. We'll jump to desktop here, and we can just talk a little bit about pricing. Obviously, the price of sheet vinyl is incredibly cheap. Linoleum it's cheap. That's one of the biggest benefits to it. The downside is it's not durable. If you move a stove across this, or you move a refrigerator across this, if you move a chair across it, you could cause a rip in it, and it's, you know, at that point, you're like she said in her post, you're trying to cut out a piece and repiece something in. It turns into a headache. It's not worth it, in my opinion. I hate sheet vinyl. I think the only place that sheet vinyl makes sense is in the base of a kitchen cabinet, in case you wind up with a water leak, so that you don't wind up damaging the bottom of your cabinet. Otherwise, I have very, very little use for sheet flooring. You might be able to get away with it in a situation like a very small bathroom or something like that, where you can run it out to the edges and have a one surface or something like that. Even then, I still don't love it. I don't like sheet vinyl. I much prefer something like a vinyl plank. Actually, before we even talk about vinyl plank, I want to talk about laminate flooring. The reason I recommend against laminate flooring is because eventually you will wind up with water that finds its way into these little seams, and all that's holding these planks together is this little tiny strip here. So once water finds its way into those seams, they will sit and expand and pop, and it makes your floor look like garbage. You'll get bubbling underneath the surface of the wear layer, so that it looks bubbled and gross. It's not a good scene. So I don't really recommend laminate flooring too frequently, and I certainly don't recommend laminate flooring anywhere that there's going to be moisture. So if you're talking about, an entranceway, a kitchen, a bathroom, something like that, definitely no on the laminate flooring. And realistically speaking, if you're talking about laminate flooring at $1.65 a square foot, you might as well spend the extra $4 a square foot and put the vinyl plank in instead. It's a much better end result, a much better end product. So when you're talking about vinyl plank, there's a lot of different options out there. The reason that I kind of like the vinyl plank that is sold by Home Depot and actually there's a lot of vinyl planks that have this. They have a pre-attached underlay, so you don't have to sit and run an underlayment and then run your flooring after that. It's all one process, and it makes the thing go down a lot easier and a lot smoother. So that is my recommendation. I understand that there's a massive price difference between 49 cents a square foot and $1.69 a square foot. But realistically speaking, this is certainly one of those situations where you're talking about you get what you pay for. When you're talking about, let's see, $1.69, I think she said it was a 1,200 square foot. You're talking about $2,000, call it $2,025 in cost for flooring if you were to do the vinyl plank. And then let's see, 1,200 times 49 cents versus $588 if you're going to do the sheet flooring, and of course that's assuming no waste or anything like that. So there is certainly a difference in the pricing. It's a pretty substantial difference in the pricing, but realistically speaking, I think if you put that vinyl plank in, you're going to wind up with a much longer lasting floor. I think if you put that sheet flooring in, you're probably going to be replacing it after 1 or 2 tenants. It's just not going to wear the way that you want it to wear. So that pretty much wraps up our vinyl sheet versus vinyl plank discussion. Our next question is in regards to tenants leaving early. This is actually an interesting one as well. I have tenants that just moved in about 2 months ago on a 1-year lease. They work for a company that cuts and cleans up trees after our summer derecho. They didn't get renewed on their contract and are moving on. I have no early cancellation clause in the lease, and they're asking me to work with them. Anyone have experience with this? What would you do? So the first thing that I would do would be talk to the tenants and try to work out a plan that works for everybody. The way that we handle these situations in our office, and we do have a clause in our lease that actually, I can bring that up on the screen while I'm talking here. This is our assignment of rental agreement clause. And you guys can take a look at that while I'm kind of going through my thoughts here. So basically what I would recommend is explain to the tenants that they're going to be responsible for the rent and the utilities until a new tenant is placed. Work out some kind of an agreement so that you're compensated for going back in and doing showings and stuff like that, and put the onus on the tenants to get the place cleaned up and ready to show. List it for rent, start showing it, do what you can do to get a new tenant in there as quickly as possible. And once you have a new tenant lined up and a new lease is signed and everything else, at that point, you know, process these guys as a standard move out. Jump back to my screen here. Process these guys as standard move out. I think that you're probably in a situation here where these guys obviously want to work with you. I think that's the best possible scenario to find yourself in a situation like this, where you actually have tenants that want to do the right thing and want to work with you. I think it's just a matter of coming up with a solution that works for everybody. So the way that we do it here in our office, as I'd mentioned, is tenant is responsible for the rent and the utilities until a new tenant is placed. We charge a 1 month's rent for the placement of that new tenant, which covers all of our marketing costs and us coming out and showing the place and everything else. There's cost to that, and we expect that the tenant is going to pick up that cost because they're the ones who are asking for the lease break, essentially. So I don't think it's unfair to ask a tenant to be responsible for that charge, if you will. And you may need to consult your state laws to see what you can and can't do when it comes to something like that. So that would be what I would do. And with regards to your current lease, you may want to put in a situation where you have some kind of a lease break clause. Some people will do just a straight up lease break clause. You pay me, you know, you lose your security deposit and pay us 2 months of rent or something like that, and you can just walk away. It's open and closed. You don't have to worry about it anymore. We don't do that. It's something that we have considered and we may implement in the future. But right now, our process is to leave that existing tenant paying the rent, paying the utilities until a new tenant is ready to move into that space. That's how we would handle that situation. Doggy drama. A friend of mine had some sink issues. A tenant of mine had some sink issues. So I had a plumber come by and resolve the issue. While I was there, I noticed a dog cage in the basement room. Mind you, I have a no pets policy with this tenant. Also, while there, I noticed dog crap all in the front yard with a pooper scooper along the wall, and also a leash tied up in the backyard. So all of this happened on January 2nd. I haven't said anything until she paid her rent, which I got yesterday, January 4th. So today I decided to text her about it and mention what I found. I told her that she was in breach of the contract. I noticed that she has the read receipt on her phone, so I know she did read it, but no response back yet. What would be my next step in all this? I do want her out since she disrespected my wishes. So I'm going to pop our pet addendum, I'm sorry, our pet lease clause, not our pet addendum, up on the screen so you guys can take a look at that while I'm kind of giving you my thoughts on the situation. You need to issue a proper lease violation to this tenant in accordance with your lease and whatever your state laws may be. A lease violation is not something to text a tenant about. Do it the right way. If you have to mail them a letter, if you have to serve them a letter, whatever you have to do it the right way, because that's only going to speed up your process in the end of the day if you do have to ask this tenant to leave. So if you want the dog gone, your letter should state that the dog needs to be removed from the property and give them the time frame in which to do it. That should be basically what you need to do there. You know, lease violation letter. Your letter should state that the dog needs to go and the time frame in which the dog needs to go, and it should state the repercussion if the dog does not go, i.e. we will be pursuing an eviction or whatever the case may be. If you're willing to accommodate the pet, the letter should probably state, you know, if there's going to be a rent increase, if they need to pay a pet deposit or a pet fee, whatever the situation is, and the tenant's going to need to sign a pet addendum agreeing to the same. I'm going to switch back to our screen now. So the reason that I mentioned that is because you might find that, you know, she says that she wants this tenant out because they disrespected her wishes, and I can certainly understand that. But if you're in a position where the dog is not causing damage, or, you know, maybe you want to let the tenant have the dog for whatever reason, that might be an option for you, is to just put the tenant on some sort of a pet addendum, get some added rent, get a pet fee or a pet deposit or whatever your state will allow you to do. And just keep rolling forward. You know, if it's a situation where the dog's not being destructive, maybe that's the route to go. I personally am with you. I don't want pets in our properties. We have a no pets policy for all of our buildings. And that's what we would expect, is that if we discovered a pet on property, that we would be issuing a lease violation and expect that tenant to remove the animal from the property. So that's how we would handle the situation. I think that you're probably on the right track. I think you just need to go the official route of doing a proper lease violation letter. Don't just text a tenant and expect them to be open to that conversation. I don't think that that's going to be the best route for handling something like that. Guys, that pretty much wraps things up for us here today. Thank you so much for joining us. I love producing Ask a Property Manager, and you can certainly help us to improve by dropping a question in the comments either on Facebook or on YouTube, and your question may be picked up and answered in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed this content, or if I brought some value to your day, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. YouTube and Facebook both push videos based on community feedback, so every like, comment, subscribe, and share helps us to grow and reach more people. We'll be back next week, January 20th. That's next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern with another show you won't want to miss. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.